I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Mary Beth.
Welcome to Turning Pages. We are going to talk about the differences today between middle grade, YA, and new adults, which is an emerging kind of categorization. There seems to be a little bit of confusion. Sometimes people will ask, how do you know if you're writing a middle grade novel? How do you know if it's young adult? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Go ahead, Mary Beth.
So let's start with middle grade. One of the main differences, besides the age of the main character, which is typically around 10, could go up to 13.
Could go as low as 8, delicately, but...
Yeah. Is the length of the book. So they typically run between like 30,000 to 50,000 words. Because while you may have some voracious middle grade readers, you got to think a lot of them are probably still, getting into reading and things like that. So a 50,000 word book is like a big...
That's a big undertaking for them, right? We always have to consider the audience, right? So that's something else you have to consider in terms of thematic development and plot development and the concepts that you're dealing with. Because one of the main differences between the young adult character and the middle grade character is the middle grade character is just getting his, bearings in the world that he's in. So things like family, dealing with family relationships, making friends... those are the things in the middle graders world.
And that's not to say that they all have to be contemporary. There's a really great series, Suzanne Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. She wrote a middle grade series called Gregor the Overlander. And it is a fantastic fantasy series. There's a little bit of coming to age. He does get older as the books go on. But... well written. Don't think that because it's middle grade, you have to necessarily dumb things down. You don't have to, veer away. Like, okay, you're not going to be overly graphic.
Yeah, you're going to watch
middle grade, but that doesn't mean that there can't be death.
Sure.
That there can't be other things that, are going to make the character feel.
Right, but you're going to watch the cursing.
Right.
There's going to be no sexual conduct, right? If there is any kind of relationship, it could be that first kiss moment or the anticipation of the first kiss.
Right.
More likely.
Like, girls go from being yucky to, that might be worth a look at,
Right. And so those are the things, right, you always have to keep in mind, too, that what are the people of the middle grade protagonist age range? What are they interested in? What are they doing?
Right.
And one kind of key way to... look at it as we talked a little bit about this when we were preparing the video, but something like the Harry Potter series that starts out clearly middle grade,
right?
But by the time that it ends,
it's very dark. It's very
Harry
young
is
adult.
a teenager,
right? There's a lot that goes on, but definitely it's one of the few series I think that spans middle grade to young adult, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was such a hit, because it had an audience. And the books and Harry literally grew with the reading audience.
Sure.
Which is great.
It's wonderful, but it's more rare.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
In the beginning of the planning stages, those are the things that you kind of need to ask yourself. Now, moving into YA, you're dealing with a protagonist who's 13, 14.
Right. Maybe up to 18 tops.
Dancing on the line there, right?
Right.
And those characters are starting to figure out their place in their world. So the middle grade character notices his or her world and is like, this is interesting, Mom, Dad, crazy Uncle Herb, or whoever, right? And now the young adult protagonist is really concerned with, well, where do I fit into this?
They're analyzing things more,
able to process a lot more than a middle grade character.
It's definitely more of a finding themselves. They're typically edgier. They typically start at 50,000 words and up. They like to say that it goes to about 75,000, but there are plenty of 100,000 word young adult books out there. So don't let that hold you back.
Right. I mean, that would depend on the genre too. Because sci-fi or fantasy is going to have a higher word count.
It's definitely going to be longer than, say, contemporary.
And I think, when we look at characters in the young adult space, you're looking at, the typical teenager in the world that you see. So the same kind of highs and lows, the same flair for the dramatics, if you will, and changeable on a dime if need be. And those are the things that you should definitely look at. Mary Beth, you had an example of a good character growth in young adult.
Yeah. It's by Christian Cashore, The Girl of Fire and Thorns, I believe is the name. And she, Elisa, I believe, is the main character. And she really changes, like, she changes physically because they talk about how she goes from being kind of overweight to being, she has this journey that she takes and she becomes fit and all that. But it's more learning to love herself, learning to be strong and having confidence in who she is. So it's really a great growth for the character, which I think is really important when it comes to young adult.
Right. Like, young adult character has already come of age, but now they're figuring out what does it mean to have come of age, right? Yeah, I mean, we talk about great coming of age novels like To Kill a Mockingbird and Catcher in the Rye, but, you know, the things that you look for in that character is some growth in terms of their awareness about what that means for them as, you know, emerging.
Right, and they're still finding themselves, so it's not,
I'm still finding myself.
Right, exactly. So, and so if we move into new adults, new adult is normally the age from when the character graduates high school,
the bridge,
and goes into college, or those college years if they don't actually attend college. So it's really them, I don't want to keep saying finding themselves, but it's finding their place in the world, what they think they want to do, how did they get there, how do they deal with, you know, suddenly you have friendships that fade, or that, you know, people stab you in the back because they're trying to climb a corporate ladder or even school, you know.
Yeah, and that
like
first real love, like high school's first kind of puppy love and crush and things like that. And now you're dealing with, like, what does it mean to, like, have to do someone's laundry, maybe, or cook them dinner.
And it does seem to be a trend that a lot of new adult definitely has more graphic sex scenes, but it's not a necessity.
Right.
But I think that a lot of writers put that in because that's typically a time when those kinds of things happen, and, you know, it plays an important part in the person that they become and how they let other people treat them and how they treat other people. And, you know, it's an important part of that life.
Yeah, it's a valid thing that happens, certainly. Right. And, you know, I think, you know, as we kind of move forward, you don't want to get hung up with what am I writing, right? Mm-hmm. Write your story and figure it out after. Yeah, figure it out as you go, after even, right? Sometimes you'll start with a character that you think you want to be a certain age, and then you go, you know what? This person's not 14, this person's 17, or whatever. Just stay true to that journey. But I think it's just important as a rule of thumb to kind of keep some of those guidelines in mind, because you're not going to get an agent or a publisher to be like, here's a 10-year-old mass murderer who's, you know, driving a Ferrari.
Well, that's not to say that can't exist, but it's more likely not going to be young adult. You can look at Stephen King's The Talisman. His main character is,
or even The Body,
13 or 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and they're young characters. Although The Body, I could put The Body as being young adult, because they're definitely learning about themselves on that journey, which is, if you've seen the movie, it's Stand By Me.
Reflective a little bit, right? So, like, the adult version. But I think, you know, Mary Beth brings up a good point, is that, you know, just because the protagonist is a certain age doesn't make it one of those categories. That's why it's important to keep other things in mind. What are we dealing with thematically? What are we dealing with in terms of word count? And then, you know, work your way from there. So, hope this helped you. Let us know. What do you think? Did we miss anything? Any distinguishers? Do you have any to add? We'd love to hear from you.
Do you have any questions on what makes more of a difference? And
we'll see you next time.
Till next time, Literati, keep turning those pages.
Bye.
Bye-bye.